Coffee is a revolution. It is the substance that pushed the Western world through the Industrial Revolution. It has been the subject of conflicts, and it has been the center of community and conversation. King Charles II banned coffee houses in 1675 and feared that conversations between the lower classes would lead to dissatisfaction with the ruling class. But whether it is across a kitchen table, the bar at a local diner, or in the oversized chairs of a coffee shop, it cannot be denied that conversation and community can be found in a hot cup of joe. Today we meet with Ben Casey, owner of Neighbors Coffee, a shop that sits at the heart of Jacksonville, Texas, and its revitalization. So please grab your drink of choice and join me as we go and meet Ben Casey. So today I'm sitting down with Ben Casey.
Hello, hello.
The owner of Neighbors Coffee in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll let him introduce himself and what he does, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I'm Ben Casey, and I own Neighbors Coffee, where we're sitting right now, as well as Likewise Coffee in Tyler. And I own and operate those coffee shops for a living.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's the episode. So, I guess, what'd you do before deciding to open up a coffee shop? What's the journey?
That's a very random. It's been a very random journey. Before I did this full time, I was a flight instructor. I actually still am a flight instructor, but I did aviation stuff full time for several years before this, and but yeah.
So specifically airplanes, or
specifically airplanes. And so, I did flight instruction full-time for a company. This company did flight instruction and then also, like, brokerage of airplanes. So, like, buying and selling airplanes. And so I did a little bit of that. But mostly flight instruction.
Is it Zach? I can't remember his name.
No, it's not.
It's not his
Ridge Air. No, it's not them. But
I was wondering.
So I did flight instruction. I still do a decent amount of that on the side. But I had always wanted to, well, not always, but really, I guess, in about 2017, 18, I got super into coffee just as a hobby and, had I had a couple $1,000s worth of espresso stuff at my house just because that was like my number one hobby and I loved it. And I was living in Seattle at the time and moved back to Jacksonville where I'm from. Because we had a baby and we wanted to raise kids, in our hometown kind of, or in my hometown. And, was into coffee as a hobby, and Jacksonville had, absolutely zero coffee culture, none whatsoever. And me and a buddy of mine named Zach, who we grew up together, and then he we both went to college in Dallas, but then just kind of went our separate ways. He lived in Denton for a little bit. And he was also really into coffee as a hobby, just kind of randomly. And we both moved back to Jacksonville around the same time. And we just kind of said, man, wouldn't it be cool to open a coffee shop in Jacksonville? There's no coffee culture here. That would be awesome. And just kind of forgot about it. And then through some random circumstances, this building became available. Both of us kind of had just the right amount of money to to buy the building, empty our savings, and kind of, it's a, stereotypical term, but like bootstrap our way into it. Yeah. And so we were like, man, we're never going to have this opportunity again. We should just try it. And so we did. So here we are.
Well, cool, man. So, I guess, so you talked about like, coffee culture. I think y'all and, Postmasters kind of started at the same time.
Yeah.
So, how did you find, like, was it an immediate success? Were people wanting it, do you feel like? Or
we felt like Jacksonville in a lot of ways, not a bad thing, but in a lot of ways is maybe about 10 years or so behind culturally, behind like where a big city is. Mm-hmm. And so having lived in Dallas and then Dallas and then Seattle for a combined about 10 years or so, I had, just gotten to, I'd gotten super into coffee and I loved coffee culture. And we figured that Jacksonville was kind of ready for it, more or less. And so, I mean, really from day one, we've had pretty good success here. I mean, we're not getting filthy rich, but Jacksonville didn't have a go-to meeting place, a hub of the community kind of. And, because it's downtown and it's in a cool old building that I think we did a pretty good job of renovating, it just, it kind of clicked with our crowd from day one. And so, yeah, I mean, honestly, we opened in January of 2022. And when we opened, it was like we had finished renovating the building. We had mostly everything set up. And we were completely out of money. So we were just like, we had none of it. We had, mine and Zach and our family had nothing in savings. We had nothing left to put more money into it. And so we were like, we have to get open and start paying for stuff. And so we did. And it was just like, all right, I hope after month one we have enough money to keep it going.
Go to month 2.
And now we're on month 34 or whatever it is. And, it's just been, it's been steadily providing for us. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I remember when y'all opened, it was my birthday. We had dinner across the street
at
nice. The failed Mexican seafood restaurant.
Yeah, rest in peace.
And came over here. But, so, I mean, speaking of, failed restaurants and stuff, y'all seem to, have been able to... I guess tough it out. Y'all kind of opened at a tough time.
Yeah, we, it was early 2022, so COVID was kind of still fresh on everybody's minds. But fortunately, in some ways, in Jacksonville, COVID was never, that much of a thing.
Yeah.
The town didn't shut down nearly like it did, in big cities. But there was still kind of some of that in our minds as we opened, but it was just, it was the right time for us to do it from, our life stage, and, buildings like this don't come available for as cheap as we got this building very often. And so it was just like, if we're ever going to try this kind of crazy thing, it's going to be now. And so we're going to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess Jacksonville specifically, the first time I sort of noticed it was kind of when y'all opened.
Yeah.
But it seems like it's trying to revitalize, I guess. How do you feel about that?
How do I feel about Jacksonville being revitalized?
Yeah,
a little bit?
or I guess, how do you see it going? Just your thoughts on it.
Yeah. Hopefully this answers the question. If you look at, and we did a lot of thinking and talking about this before we opened. If you look at small towns like Jacksonville, pretty much across the whole country, but especially across the South, I guess, if you want to call it that, there are towns that are thriving and there are towns that are dying, and kind of everything in between. And one of the consistencies across towns that are thriving is that they have a downtown that has been revitalized. A lot of the buildings in a lot of downtowns, in Jacksonville and similar cities, all these buildings were built 100-ish years ago. This building was built in 1929. And, when they were all built, downtown was the center of commerce, the center of the community, kind of. The city center is what they call it in some places. And around, at some point in the last 100 years, that kind of all changed, and most downtowns kind of died.
Yeah.
And all the major businesses moved, to the highways, basically. So in Jacksonville, along Highway 69, that's the new hub of business almost, the new, area of commerce. And if you look at cities that are in kind of Jacksonville's size and demographic, the ones that have revitalized their downtown, put money into the old buildings to make them beautiful again, put new businesses in them that are kind of tailored toward the new idea of a downtown, those are the cities that are thriving. And now if the big question kind of, and it's probably a little bit of both, but the big question is, it's which came first, the chicken or the egg? Are the towns thriving because they revitalized the downtown, Or is it that once a town is kind of thriving, they then have the time and energy and money to go fix downtown? I don't know which one is which, but JEDCO, Jacksonville Economic Development Corporation, I think really wisely is seeing that trend and really wants downtown Jacksonville to be revitalized. And so they have a grant that we were one of the very first adopters of. But basically, if you buy a downtown building and you renovate it and then put a tax-generating business in it, they will reimburse you for 50 cents on the dollar for all of your renovation costs up to a certain point. Yeah. There is a point at which it caps. But, I mean, they pretty much matched us 50 cents on the dollar for all of our renovation costs. And it's a great, I mean, it's, I don't know how many businesses have taken advantage of that, but I know that was huge for us. That was one of the reasons we were able to do it. So it's kind of a big success story for just for JEDCO's grant, because we're a business that exists because we wouldn't have been able to swing it without that money help. But it really has worked, and downtown Jacksonville is now, I mean, I'm not going to say it's like the most happening place in all of East Texas or something like that, but it is legitimately, I graduated high school in 2012, so that was 12 years ago. Wow, I'm old. In 2012, I mean, I came downtown literally never throughout high school. I mean, I didn't know what was down here. It was just a bunch of old, most of them empty or kind of decrepit buildings. And now,
a lot of loans and pawn shops.
Yeah, pretty much. And now, I mean, there's a lot of like thriving businesses downtown. There's us, there's Food and Table, the Ritual, two Ritual buildings that both look great. There's, Vine on Main. There's a lot of different shops that look really nice. The Draft House down there. I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody, but like, all these places, every single one of them are, new within the past 5 or so years, and are doing a really good job, in my opinion, of making downtown Jacksonville like a new and cool and lively place to be. And that part of our goal with doing this was to spearhead that movement. Sounds a little strong, but be a part of that movement. You know what I mean?
Like, I guess provide value.
Yeah. I mean, and honestly, this sounds corny, but I love Jacksonville. Like, I'm from here. We moved here when I was 5, and my family still lives here. So it is, Jacksonville is home. I'm super proud of Jacksonville, and I would love it even if the town sucked. But fortunately for me, I think the town doesn't suck.
Yeah.
And our goal is to really just provide Jacksonville with a thing that is valuable, a thing that the town as a whole can be proud of, and and enjoy, I guess. So yeah.
I mean, like, one of the hardest things for me as sort of I guess outsider, I've been here 7 or 8 years now, but is like how down people will be on places like Jacksonville, surrounding area and stuff. And I'm like, for one, it's really pretty beautiful area.
It is.
Especially if you get just outside of the,
I completely agree. I think East Texas is beautiful.
I'm like, man, I grew up in DFW. You should, like, Fort Worth is nice. Dallas is nice,
Yeah.
in between suburbs.
Right. But, miles and miles of it.
But it also just kind of, it's sad to me. It seems like everybody's just kind of giving up on hope on everything, and it's just like, oh well, these aren't. Everybody, I guess, thinks things are better somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, people love to hate on, maybe not Jacksonville specifically. People just love to be haters, and they love to complain. And the grass is just always greener somewhere else. But honestly, man, I'm saying a lot of corny things right now, but the grass is green where you water it, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to have that mentality of like, we're going to make Jacksonville great. Like, there's no coffee culture in Jacksonville, but I love coffee culture. Well, let's stop complaining about that and let's do it ourselves.
Yeah.
Well, here we are.
I mean, I think corniness is fine, man. Like, I think we need some of it. Like, sort of all the cynics of the 90s are kind of dead now.
Yeah.
So maybe it doesn't work out so great.
Right. I mean, stuff becomes cliche because it's applicable in a lot of areas,
Yeah. So you kind of talked about, the major highways. Towns kind of changed from being a city center to growing up along highways.
Yeah.
So since y'all have opened along the highway, there's been like 3 chain restaurants opened up. So do you feel like that hurt y'all at all? Or
It's probably to some extent. When we got going, when we first bought the building and got working, we bought the building in June of 2021 and did about 6 months of work on it before we opened in January of 2022. When we bought the building, we were the only coffee shop in town. We were very excited to be the only one in town. And since June of 2021, now we have Postmasters. They announced after us, but then opened before us because they didn't have hardly any like renovation work to do. So in a way, and we announced first, but they did beat us. But anyway, since then we have them, Starbucks, Scooters, 7 Brew, if you want to count the little CC's thing inside a Super One, and us. Yeah. I mean, that's an unbelievable number of coffee shops. But what I always tell people is, I mean, it just proves that a coffee shop is a good idea. Yeah. And we had the same idea as everybody else about 6 months before everybody else.
Yeah. No, my fear was kind of like, especially with Starbucks, I was kind of like, man, a bunch of just, I hate to say it, but kind of basic people are going to be like, oh, well, I got to go there.
Whenever Starbucks, or, when Scooters announced first, they opened shortly after we did. We were a little nervous about that. And I mean, I'm sure that over time people have gone. All right, there's a lot of honking outside.
I think we're good. We're good.
It did make us a little bit nervous, and we probably have lost business to those people because at the end of the day, at least a lot of people do make a lot of their decisions based on convenience. Yeah. And like obviously Starbucks right along the highway is absolutely more convenient for most people. But at the same time, we kind of say that we are offering something a little bit different. Yeah. We really want to create, like I said, like the hub of community. And Starbucks is not trying to be that at all. They're just trying to get you your cup of coffee as quick as possible and cycle you in and out and, rush you out the door as soon as you walk in. And we try to do the exact opposite. I mean, we try to do the exact opposite. We try to push people to do the exact opposite, but we do also really try to be fast and efficient, And we do have, a lot in our morning time up until maybe about 8:30, we're very predominantly to-go crowd. And we'll have like a really busy sales hour and there'll be almost nobody in the shop because everybody's just, walking in and out. But yeah, all that being said, I'm sure we've lost some business to the big chains, but if you were to just look at our sales reports for the last 2.5 years, you wouldn't be able to pick out when the other places opened, if that makes sense. We did have the day after Scooters opened, which was only, I think, a month or so after we opened. The day after Scooters opened was our worst sales day ever. And it was like half of what a normal day is now. Yeah. And I was just like, oh my gosh, what have we done? It's over, pack it up. We had a good month. Yeah, but then the next day,
can I start a small fire there?
Right. The next day was normal though, and it's been pretty normal ever since. So that was a long answer to the question. Yeah, I'm sure they've heard us some, but we're offering, they're selling convenience and we're selling an experience.
Yeah, and I mean for sure, like, y'all are definitely the meeting place here.
We try to be.
Like, and I don't hear anybody say, "Okay, let's meet up at Starbucks." You know, it's everybody wants to be here.
Yeah, it's the cool place.
Yeah. So about y'all's deadly rivalry between Postmasters. So, trying to think, I had a question in the back of my head. Oh yeah. So, sort of. Economically, I guess, At what point did you kind of feel secured this business was going to stay? I know it's always nerve-wracking.
Yeah,
opening something
I'll
new.
let you know when we get to that point. No, really. So when we opened in basically at the very beginning of 2022, and our thought was we are going to, Zach and I, we're going to make this our full-time thing for that first year. And obviously that is still, you're taking a little bit of a risk because you just never know if people want it. But fortunately they did. And our goal was to, for the first year, we were going to pour ourselves completely into it, and that we would not have another job. I did almost zero flight training in the year 2022. And our goal was to make that our full-time thing. And basically by the end of that year, kind of assess and decide, is this something that will support both our families? Do we need to change ownership structure? Do we need to get out completely? What is it going to look like? And so we got to the end of that year kind of, and actually we ended up making the decision a little bit earlier, but this coffee shop is solvent and is profitable and everything, but we kind of knew this, would be the case from the beginning, but it's never going to be enough to fully support two families for all their expenses and all their lives. So then the decision was, do we, but it was, we love it and it's profitable. So we were going to keep it open. So the question, and we kind of had a few options, was, does one of us get out completely, sell our ownership to the other? And because it would be enough to support one family, just not two. So does one of us get out completely and the other one just run it and that's their thing, and the other one goes and does something else with their lives? Or do we both kind of pull out halfway as far as our time commitment so that we can go both have other jobs but still own it together? And that's option 2. Or option 3, which we, through a bunch of different circumstances, we had the opportunity to do a second coffee shop. And option 3 was that we do kind of pull out of our time here, but instead of going to do other jobs, we go focus on opening another coffee shop. And so that's what we did. And so I guess really it was about that point that we realized that with this kind of model, where neighbors didn't have to bear the load of supporting both of our families, it could just be one cog in the wheel kind of, or one leg of the table supporting our families. That's when we were kind of like, okay, this can be a long-term thing. And we officially decided to do Likewise. We ended up naming it a different thing, but we decided to do Likewise in September of 2022. So after about 8 or 9 months, we were like, okay, this is going to be the plan. And with this plan, we think Neighbors can be a long-term thing.
Yeah.
So
with Likewise, it's a bigger market in Tyler for sure.
Yeah.
But you also have a lot more competition. So how did that go?
Well, really, we felt like obviously there's more coffee shops in Tyler, but there are really not very many places doing specialty coffee well. And, there's a big difference between commodity coffee, like the Starbucks and things like that, and specialty coffee, which is what we do. There's really, considering the population of Tyler, there is a tiny, tiny number of shops really doing specialty coffee, and even fewer amount of shops doing specialty coffee well. And so we thought...
So who's not doing it well? Let's call them out.
We'll save that for another time. But we really felt like there was a gap, like a legitimate kind of gap in the market, to where if we did specialty coffee really well, that we would immediately have a market for it. And so what we're trying to do with Likewise is do specialty coffee, like third wave coffee, if you're familiar with that term. do third wave coffee, but
is it kind of like scum music? Or?
not quite. It's like the short explanation of that is like first wave coffee is like all of coffee in the country, kind of like before the mid 70s, where like you either had coffee in your home, at a diner, or at like a coffee shop. But there were not very many like dedicated coffee shops. Second wave coffee is what Starbucks pioneered and is still leading the charge of, and that's like the commodification of coffee. And that's like what, over the course of like the mid 70s to like the mid 90s, Starbucks basically instilled in American culture the ubiquitousness of coffee shops. Now there's a Starbucks in every corner in every big city. Even now, like towns like Jacksonville now have a drive-through Starbucks, and it's just now coffee is a thing that everybody's familiar with. Everybody, even if you don't like it, like it's not weird to see it. It's not necessarily a good product. Starbucks coffee is not high quality coffee, but it's easy. It's a commodity. Everybody can get it.
It's so strange to me because like people will like pine over Starbucks coffee, and I'm like, I'd rather have a Mac Cafe.
they do, the thing that Starbucks does well is that a Starbucks here and a Starbucks in Nebraska and a Starbucks in California and in, Argentina and in South Korea, no matter where it is, like it's Starbucks. It's the same product. And so people, they're creatures of habit and they like what they like, you know what I mean? And so they've won the culture over in some ways just because of their uniformity and their consistency. And that's kind of a lot of the hallmarks of the second wave coffee. Third wave coffee is like a lot of people, and this maybe started in big cities like 15, 20 years ago, but people were like, coffee should be, or at least can be like an art form. We can really care about like the origin, where the coffee came from, the process, the roasting profile, all the different, ways that you can like nerd out about coffee. And, turning coffee from a commodity thing to like a high class, pinky out, fancy thing. So anyway, all that being said, like Neighbors is definitively a third wave coffee shop. And with our goal with Likewise is that, there's not a lot of people doing third wave coffee well in Tyler. And if we could do it well, but also have the same convenience and commodification as like a second wave shop, which is why we have like a drive-through and we try to be super efficient, super fast, super approachable. Because a lot of people are like very intimidated by third wave shops because it's like there's a bunch of words on the menu that they don't know how to pronounce, they don't know what it is, and it's just kind of like freaks them out a little bit. We wanted to not be intimidating for like the iced vanilla latte crowd. You know what I mean? Anyway, we figured that if we can kind of combine the commodity coffee with the third wave specialty coffee and do both really well, then we would have a market from day one. So I can't remember what your original question was, but maybe that was an answer for it.
I can't remember. It's fine. I'm tired. I just got off work. So as far as like, you were talking about sourcing the coffee and everything. How do y'all go about doing that?
So we're not a coffee roaster. We absolutely have plans of doing that. Hopefully in the near future. I would say certainly, Lord willing and assuming everything goes like we think it can go, we'd love to be doing all of our own roasting in the next 5 years or so. But right now we partner with a coffee roaster in Houston called Amaya Coffee, and they're like a specialty coffee roaster, meaning they only source beans that are graded above a certain level. Every coffee bean that's imported to the U.S. is graded, and I can't remember the number off the top of my head. It's graded on a 100-point scale, and you can only label it specialty. I think if it's, don't quote me on this, but I think if it's like graded at 88 or above or whatever it is, and so so that on a scale of like 100, I'm guessing. They're like making all the coffee that they buy is at least graded a B+ or better, basically. So like really high quality stuff. And anyway, so we partner with them, and when I say partner with, buy a crap
You
ton of
buy
coffee
things.
from them. Yeah. Yeah, so we buy our coffee
They
from
may or may not know I exist, but
well, no, the reason, I say the partner sounds corny, but
yeah.
we have we've sat down with them. They know exactly who we are. They
Okay.
came and visited us. It's like very much. I mean, they do a great job of viewing it very much as like a partnership.
Yeah.
To the point where like they're in Houston and they're huge in Houston. Like a ton of specialty shops in Houston use Amaya's coffee. I don't know how many people they have outside of Houston area, but not that many. So they're really excited about us using them because it's giving them a much broader reach. They're very invested in us, being a quality shop because they want their coffee to look good. And if we were a crappy coffee shop that wasn't doing a good job, brewing their coffee.
Oh no, Jacksonville, that may be in Texaco.
Right. You know what I'm saying? So they anyway, so I mean, on paper, all we do is buy coffee from them, and we buy a lot. But
Yeah.
it is they do a great job of treating it like an actual partnership. So
Yeah.
anyway, but yeah, I mean, they're any day of the week, I can tell you exactly the country and even the farm of origin for any coffee that we're brewing. From this farm in El Salvador, and it was, processed in this way. And it was roasted in this way, and I could tell you all these different facts about it, basically, which is kind of a hallmark of specialty coffee. So, yeah.
So, which country of origin is best, or is that just dependent on the coffee?
No, that is that's people will generally have their favorites. I've kind of stopped having my favorite country of origin because I've had really great and really bad coffee from basically every coffee producing country.
Yeah.
Typically, Ethiopia has a great reputation in the specialty coffee world, just for having really interesting, floral or almost fruity, not flavored coffee, but coffee that's just
Flavor
really
from the
interesting.
beans.
Yeah, I mean, the notes of the coffee are really fruity, floral, delicate, almost really interesting. So if I had to pick a favorite, I would probably say Ethiopia. But I like I said, there was a time when I was only buying, Ethiopian or Rwandan coffee is really big right now. I was only buying coffee from those two countries, but now I'll buy coffee from anywhere because I've had great coffee from all over the place. So,
we had a family friend. She was from Panama, and when her sister would come and visit, they'd bring us coffee beans.
Yeah.
It was such
Panama's
good coffee.
Panama's and actually becoming more of a coffee producing country.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, especially there's a lot of money in it these days.
Yeah.
Coffee's
America has the demand now.
They got the demand. That's for sure.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
So I guess, what would you like to see in the next 5 years? You mentioned y'all doing y'all's own roasting.
Yeah.
Where would you like to take Neighbors? And likewise as well.
We'd love to be roasting our own coffee. That's kind of the goal that I am the most passionate about and excited about. Because I really do just love the art of coffee from plant to cup, basically. I just think the whole process is fascinating. And right now we're just on the very tail end, the brewing of the coffee, but I'd love to move into the next link up on the chain, like the roasting of coffee. So I really love the art of it. You can seriously nerd out about roasting profiles and temperatures and all different kinds of stuff. This is a fascinating process, but then also right now with both the shops, you're marketing only to people who live within reasonable driving distance of those shops. Mm-hmm. Once you start roasting, obviously your profit margin at your own shops goes through the roof because you can buy unroasted coffee for way cheaper than you can buy roasted coffee, like a tenth of the price. So your own profit margin goes way up. Plus now the ideal is that you roast for your own shops, and then you also have a lot of wholesale clients, like what we are to Amaya, where we're just a coffee shop buying coffee ground or coffee beans from them. You have a lot of other shops that are buying your coffee, And now you can market to, I mean, anywhere in the world. We literally have a coffee roaster in northeastern Canada, like Saskatchewan, and they are like in our Instagram DMs talking about, we're a coffee roaster and we'd love to send y'all some free samples. So I mean, we're probably not going to go with them because we love Amaya and not really trying to change it up. But like, that just goes to show that, I mean, literally your market can be worldwide at that point.
Saskatchewan, I mean, I guess coffee lovers everywhere, but it seems like that'd be a pain to ship.
It would be a pain to ship. I'd be, the price would have to be right to make shipping work out. Getting it here from Houston's a lot easier. But yeah, I mean, it just kind of shows like so I'm interested in it for the art form of it, and just like it is the logical next step from a business perspective for like long-term viability and stuff like that.
Yeah. So, because I like going down rabbit holes and getting nerdy with people's passions and stuff. So, like, briefly, for somebody wanting to get into the nerdy side of coffee, what are the basics? Where should they go? What resources?
If you're getting into the basics of just like you want to become a coffee nerd, I mean, two places. Number one, go to your local specialty coffee shop, wherever that happens to be. If you're in East Texas, come to Neighbors or likewise. And whoever's there, we hire people who know a lot about coffee, and anybody behind the bar can tell you a lot about coffee and how to brew it really well at home. And then the best YouTube channel that I have found for coffee is a dude named James Hoffman.
Okay, I've heard of him.
Yeah, James Hoffman. He is the coffee dude. He's in the UK, and he won the World Barista Championships a few years ago, which is a big thing.
Yeah.
Where you literally get in front of judges and brew some coffee and like do barista stuff, and you
flip on your Met Cafe or
Yeah.
Mr. Coffee.
Yeah, drive through McDonald's on the way. Here you go, dude. I mean, but his YouTube page is amazing. I learned a ton of what I know about coffee now from his YouTube page.
Yeah.
But also just, go buy some coffee and buy some, basic equipment. Espresso is insanely expensive to get into.
Yeah.
Because the crappiest espresso machine in the whole universe is still probably like $500. To get one that's decent, you're looking at like $2,000 probably. So that's an insanely expensive hobby.
Is there anybody in like the espresso world that's like, I built my own machine?
I'm sure they're out there somewhere, but they're so specialized that I doubt it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's not a huge amount of people that are doing that. It's not like I built my own computer kind of thing.
Yeah.
So espresso is something expensive, but just getting into like coffee, you can buy, if you spend $100 getting like a little scale, a little kettle, a little pour over brewer, like a V60 is a popular one. You can be in $100 of equipment, and you can be set and ready to brew truly excellent coffee.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I would go to your local shop, or I would go to James Hoffman's YouTube page, and I would just start flipping through videos.
Yeah.
That's what I did, and you can go down a very, very deep and crazy rabbit hole. So
go some very dark places on YouTube.
Yeah.
So I guess I'd like to turn it over to you, because I'm out of questions. Is there anything you want to cover or say here at the end of the podcast?
That's a great. You're gonna put me on the spot like that. Trying to think of anything that I would want to talk about. Maybe anything with the coffee shops. Boy, this is gonna sound corny, but at risk of sounding corny, I'll just do it. That's
the title of the interview.
We started our coffee shops, or we started Neighbors, and obviously, the timing was right, and the building was cheap, and the JEDCO grant was there. So obviously we had a lot of help with not extenuating circumstances, but circumstances that just were out of our control, and the timing was right. But I would just, I would encourage anybody like in their 20s who isn't like crazy invested in a career yet to just like try the thing. You know what I mean? Try the thing, open the business, do the thing that you want to do, whatever it is, whatever the thing is. I would highly suggest you try it. You'll never know how it's going to go unless you actually, do the thing. I don't know what my life would have looked like had we not started the coffee shops. I have no idea what I would be doing. Probably something in aviation, but that had its own issues, just like, from a family perspective, having little kids and flying airplanes for a living makes you gone from family constantly. Anyway, but I don't know what my life would look like had we not started the coffee shop. So it would be way different from how it is now. And I'm super grateful to be doing what I'm doing. And, we're not getting rich by any stretch of the imagination, but we are making it work. And yeah, so I would just encourage anybody to shoot your shot and try the thing.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great way to end it. Thank you again for sitting down and doing
Thanks for
the
having
interview.
me on.
And it's been a lot of fun.
It's been a lot of fun, man. Appreciate you.
Oh, hi. You made it to the end. Congratulations. Not many people do that. While you're here, as well, like and subscribe and check out our social media on Instagram and Facebook under the same name as down there. Thanks.